How's it going, everyone? Sorry for my SpongeBob. Today is August 28th, 2021, and of course, we're going to talk about what will become Major Hurricane Ida as it approaches the Gulf Coast, more specifically Louisiana. Well, before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather icons, and make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather icons. So, to first begin, let's take a look at the water vapor imagery right now, and you see that Ida is trying to develop an eye at this point. However, it isn't quite there yet. There isn't a strong enough downdraft in the atmosphere, or there isn't enough convection going on to allow it to fully develop an eye. However, we soon eventually will see an eye once we begin to see more convection going along those updrafts, making the air molecules a little bit more buoyant, and then by the time it reaches the upper levels of the atmosphere, all that air is going to need to sink, and once enough air is aloft in the atmosphere, then we're going to see the eye begin to form right around the center of circulation. It's trying to do that right now. It doesn't have a lot of air molecules aloft at this time, but we are certainly beginning to see an eye, which is a sign that it is currently strengthening, and it's expected to go into bombogenesis, which pretty much means that it's going to rapidly intensify just before it makes landfall somewhere in Louisiana later tomorrow night. So you see that there's nice outflow with this storm right now all throughout the center of circulation, or just outside where all this convection is located, which means that there's very light wind shear right now in the atmosphere, and that's expected to continue just before it makes landfall, which is why it's rapidly intensifying. However, some good news is that right now the updrafts that are currently surrounding the center of circulation aren't really axis symmetrical or in a uniform fashion just yet. However, which could make a limit in terms of its strengthening over the next several hours. However, I think at this point a major hurricane is still inevitable, as we're going to see this continue to rapidly intensify just before landfall. However, we could at least hope that there's at least going to be some asymmetrical features within the storm over the next several hours to at least put a limit of how much this could strengthen. However, it seems likely that we're just going to see a very strong storm somewhere in Louisiana, so I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that, as I'd say all throughout Louisiana you guys still need to prepare for a monster storm that's going to make landfall where you guys are at. So if we were to take a look at the current wind shear map in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you see that right now the center circulation is under very light wind shear, where the upper level winds are currently only right around 5 knots, which is very light, and it's more than sufficient enough for this storm to undergo rapid intensification just before it makes landfall. We do see some wind shear just to the northwest of the storm as a result of sort of the upper level high I was talking to you guys about, where the upper level high is currently located right over this storm. However, since this upper level high is sort of just above where the lower level center is, then a lot of the wind shear that this upper level high is producing is just is pretty much displaced from where the center of circulation is. So as a result, this storm isn't really feeling a lot of wind shear at all because of the displacement of the strong upper level winds that this upper level high is producing, and it seems unlikely that we're going to see any sort of major wind shear affect the storm just before it makes landfall. We do see an area where the wind shear, you could argue, is moderate, where we do see an area where the upper level winds are 20 knots. However, I do expect it to die down as the storm heads further northwestward. So we're going to continue to see the storm strengthen as a result of lighter than usual wind shear. Take a look at what the GFS model is currently stating. So first, let's take a look at the moisture in the mid levels of the atmosphere. You see that as of right now, the GFS model forecasted this storm to be at 984 millibars. Oh, and by the way, Hurricane Ida, at the recording of this video, is currently at 100 miles per hour as of 2 p.m. advisory, and it's moving northwest at 16 miles per hour, which is around an average speed for a tropical cyclone. However, it is expected to move slower as the steering flow becomes weaker by the time it reaches Louisiana, and that should create major problems when it comes to rainfall all throughout Louisiana and Mississippi. But Like I said, the current wind speed within maximum wind speed is 100 miles per hour, and the millibar pressure is 976. And I want you guys to pay attention to that, because if we take a look at what the GFS model forecasted this storm to be at 2 p.m. today, it expected the storm to be at 980 millibars. Now, the current strength of this storm has the millibar pressure down to 976. So already we're seeing this storm exceed the computer model's expectation, and that's a pretty big worry, because maybe this could intensify more than what the computer models are forecasting, because as of 2 p.m. advisory, this storm was at 976 millibars compared to what the GFS model forecasted at 980. So we could maybe see more intensifying than usual, and I wouldn't rule out a category 5 if this really undergoes bombogenesis, which I think is certainly possible over today and tomorrow, where we could see just rapid intensification of the storm, which would just be devastating for Louisiana. But either way, I think this should be a major threat or an extreme threat for Louisiana. So you guys all throughout Louisiana need to pay close attention to this. But taking a look at the moisture levels in the mid levels of the atmosphere between 400 and 700 millibars, you see that the dry air is almost non-existent throughout this storm. We do see a little bit of dry air towards southern Gulf of Mexico, closer to the Yucatan Peninsula. However, it's far from entraining the center of circulation, and it's far from all this moisture that this storm that's surrounding this storm right now, and it isn't expected to be much of any threat to this storm when it comes to strengthening. So as a result, this storm is expected to just rapidly intensify due to a lack of dry air. And taking a look at the upper level wind map, you see that there is a little bit of wind shear induced by this upper level high, but like I said, it won't be enough to slow down this storm. As you see, it's going to have a very open area where the wind shear is very light, and the storm is symmetrical enough to really rapidly intensify, where the mid-level low and the lower level low aren't really that displaced from each other to allow for weakening or a slow gradual development to occur. This is expected to be rapid intensification over the next several hours. Now, in terms of the track of the storm, there isn't really large uncertainty where this will go at this point. We're only talking about forecasts that's less than 48 hours out at this point, so there isn't a huge margin of error when it comes to where exactly this will make landfall. But the questions but there will certainly still be questions that remain regarding the track of the storm. It really all depends on how strong this ridge over the eastern half of the United States is, because if it's a little stronger, then we could see a track further westward. However, if it's a little weaker, then we could see a track further eastward, closer to New Orleans. We just have to wait and see how this trough reacts with this ridge, because that could create a bigger threat because that could make a big change when it comes to the forecast, depending on how much this trough shears away this ridge, to see where exactly it'll go. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. However, like I said, there isn't going to be a large margin of error, because we're only 2 days out, as it's pretty likely somewhere in middle Louisiana should experience the brunt of the impacts or the landfall most likely. But at least make sure to pay close attention if you're anywhere near the cone, because it could go anywhere from New Orleans almost as west as Lake Charles, Louisiana. So keep that in mind. But taking a look at what the ensemble members are saying, you see that there isn't a large margin of error, but remember, only a couple miles can make a big difference, because if you're in the eye wall, just because of a several mile shift, that could mean the difference between only having 50 mile per hour sustained winds or over 100 mile per hour sustained winds. So you still want to keep a close eye on the track forecast to see if you'll get hit by the eye wall or not, because that certainly could make big change. That could certainly bring big change to your forecast. So make sure to keep that in mind. But you see that most of the tracks are favoring southeastern Louisiana to straight up southern middle Louisiana to receive a landfall. And a very strong storm, a very strong landfall at that. Now, taking a look at my forecast, keep in mind is just my speculation alone. To see guidance, consult the National Hurricane Center for updates. But you see that I'm expecting the storm to strengthen a little bit more than what the computer models are forecasting, because like I said, the GFS model already forecast at this time forecasted a weaker storm than what is currently happening. So I do think that we could see close to a 150 mile per hour landfall somewhere in southeastern Louisiana, which would just be devastating. If you're along the coast, you need to I recommend to just get out, because when we're talking about winds around 150 miles per hour, that creates major problems, and at that point it becomes life threatening. So you guys need to pay close attention to this all throughout southeastern Louisiana, as I do think life threatening impacts are likely. Whether it is a category 3 storm, category 4, or category 5, we should see major and extreme impacts along the coast. So you guys need to pay close attention to this. In terms of what the National Hurricane Center is saying, you see it's pretty much the same sort of forecast track. We're both predicting a major hurricane to make landfall somewhere in Louisiana, and you see hurricane warnings extend all throughout the cone, which includes New Orleans, which is crazy because tomorrow is going to be 16-year anniversary that Hurricane Katrina made landfall almost at the exact location on the same day, with almost the same strength at around a category 4 type strength. So it's crazy how this all comes together in the 16-year anniversary. But you guys throughout New Orleans and Louisiana need to prepare, as potentially this maybe well, I wouldn't say it's another Katrina because every hurricane is different, but when it comes to like the wind speed and the strength of the storm, this could be another Katrina for you guys, as a category 4 is currently expected to make landfall. Now, taking a look at the storm surge forecast. So the storm surge should be just very life-threatening, especially if you're along coast, where we do see an area of 10 to 15 feet of storm surge, which is just amazing. Keep in mind, it only takes 2 feet of water to move a car. So multiply 2 feet times 5, you have 10 feet of water that could potentially flood your home along coast. So you guys need to pay close attention to that. And then 7 to 11 feet along the eastern shores of Louisiana, and 4 to 7 right around Mississippi, 2 to 4 in Mobile Bay. So you guys won't be out of the woods when it comes to storm surge in Alabama. And you see even further westward, 1 to 3 right around from Sabine Pass all the way to Pecan Island, and then 3 to 5 and 6 to 9 all throughout the western Louisiana coast. So you guys need to pay close attention, because storm surge flooding is one of the leading causes of deaths in hurricanes. So this could potentially be major. Stay away from the coast if you could, and just evacuate when officials tell you to, because it could save your life. Now, taking a look at the rainfall, which is another major worry, because like I said, the storm is expected to slow down once this makes landfall due to a lack of steering currents in the atmosphere. You see that 15 to 20 inches of rain is currently expected in New Orleans. That's in excess of 1 to 2 feet of rain almost, which is just a crazy amount of rain. Because to put it in this perspective, think about this. Like, I know we're far from the winter, but usually 1 inch of rain equates to 10 inches of snow. Imagine having 20 inches of rain. 20 inches of rain. So 20 times 10, you'd get, if this were a snowstorm, you get 200 inches of snow, which is just insane. That's almost 10 whole feet of snow right there if this were a snowstorm. But obviously this is a snowstorm. I just wanted to put that in perspective to really show you how much rain is forecast, where you could receive 20 inches of rain, almost 2 feet of rain, which is just insane. That's just historic, and that will inevitably cause flooding, and flash flooding is almost inevitable at this point if you're within southeastern Louisiana. So this will be a life-threatening flood threat for a lot of you guys. So you guys in a flood zone need to prepare and evacuate if you're in a flood zone, because I do think this could be a devastating flood threat for you guys in southeastern Louisiana. And even further northward, this rain will extend all throughout Mississippi, where 4 to 6 inches of rain is expected. Nashville will get involved. Even Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and even the Northeast could get involved with some heavy rain of 2 to 4 inches. So all throughout. So even if you're far north from landfall, you need to pay close attention to this, because a lot of rain is expected. Now, taking a look at the flash flood risk over the next several days, over the next 3 days, you see that it's a high risk of flash flooding, where over a 50% chance you're going to receive flash flooding somewhere around New Orleans area and the metropolitan area, and even a moderate chance for southern Mississippi and throughout Louisiana as well. So keep in mind flash flooding, because that should be another major threat for you guys. So if you're in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, you need to prepare. I emphasize to prepare, because this could be a life-threatening situation. And I hope you guys stay safe, as my hearts go out to all of you, as I want to keep you guys safe. This is why I do videos like this. I want to keep you guys safe, but make sure to heed the warnings from your local officials, because it could save your life. But I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day and stay safe along the Southeast Coast.